Thanks for joining us again here at Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're here to look over the first wave of free agency as the new league year began on Wednesday. We've had our legal tampering period as well, so plenty of news, plenty of trades, plenty of signings, plenty of trades not to be as well, or specifically one, which we'll talk about. But just to sort of ramp up the first 3 or 4 days of free agency, we're here because you need to know what we think about it all as well and bring you some stuff that you've missed, no doubt, as well. I'm, of course, joined by Byron and Joe. Gentlemen, welcome to the new league year. How are you both doing?
Good, yeah. It's very hectic first couple of days of tampering and a huge shock at the end of Tuesday before the league actually opened. But calmed down a little now, thankfully. So a good time to catch up and, recalibrate our thoughts, I think.
Yeah, Monday was a bit... I was saying Monday was a bit nuts. There must be a pre-tampering. Pre-tampering is going to be coming around soon because some of them contracts were quickly done within like half an hour to get all that money sorted. But it's fun to be back. And it feels like that Monday is the big day now where so many players go and it goes less and less throughout the week.
Yeah, we in our free agency preview, we talked about the possibility of where Max Crosby was going to go, and then I edited it and cut a minute in it to explain that we recorded it before it, and he went before we got the episode out.
Didn't he even pick Ravens?
No, we didn't. I think the Ravens were in the 13-1 plus with the rest.
Okay.
After I think the Bears and the Cowboys and staying with the Raiders, so
probably longer now.
Yeah, certainly so. But yeah, Byron, you want to lead away? I suppose we should start there, right? Because that was certainly been the biggest and most bonkers story, I think, of
absolutely
the season so far.
Yeah, so for anyone who's been on Mars since last Thursday, Max Crosby, Friday night, will get a big trade announcement. The Ravens' 14th overall pick, 2027 first-round pick. Max Crosby is a Baltimore Raven, pending physical. Always that sneaky words we need to get in there. And then come Tuesday evening, before league signings open, everything on Wednesday, new league year, Baltimore Raven have pulled out of the trade. No specific details came out immediately, but from all accounts, they had a real good look at the MRIs, they'd done his medical, did not pass the muster, it was not something they could commit to long-term at the price tag of 2 first-round picks, and I think the new contract that would have been reworked, not something they could commit to. A lot of, I don't say pearl clutching, but a lot of angry people online about it. Max Crosby seems fine with it. He seems pretty happy to be back being a Raider. We'll see, I guess, how that plays out long term. I mean, I think on the face of it, it stinks. But if truly they've looked at it and, they're looking at his knees and they look like wet spaghetti in there rather than structured ligaments, then, that is on their prerogative, really. I don't think it's going to affect the Ravens long term. I think people still trade with them. I've seen a lot of blowback of like, oh, they've done this before in free agency. But when they've done that before in free agency, to be fair, they were right. Ryan Grant ended up only playing like 15 games in his career after that point, and they tried to sign him on a 4-year deal. So I think it's a really fascinating thing, but I'm not sure how much impact it's going to have on Baltimore going forward. I've seen a lot of things like people won't deal with them. And I think, we'll get into the rest of the market and big deals here. Have you guys got any wild theories or wild takes on the Crosby of it all? It seems to me like it stunk when it first came out, but the more you've come away from it, I think Baltimore really wanted him. There's maybe we'll get to a signing in a minute. I see Paul making a bit of a face, and maybe Paul has got a bit of a conspiracy theory there. Yeah. And you could just go straight into the new signing if you want.
Yeah, I don't think it's conspiracy theory. I just think the Ravens got wind that Trey Hendrickson's market wasn't necessarily going to be as lucrative as Hendrickson maybe thought it would be, and others, and people weren't necessarily willing to pay the over $30 million a year that Hendrickson probably thought he might have got. And down to the fact that there were options, and we'll talk about some of the others pass rushers that went. Hendrickson coming off a big year of injury, he's had a couple of years of injury, and being 30 plus, that combination I think is a great combination to kind of get that kind of a big last contract. So I think he was always going to get more of kind of you're going to kind of have to prove it a little bit more again to potentially earn a couple of more big years down the line. I think the Ravens got wind of that and decided actually we can keep our 2 first-round picks and get a player who can arguably make a similar impact now. Crosby a couple of years younger, more money, but then you factor in the injury a little bit. You know, he's an injury, and clearly is something there. But I don't think it's a failed physical kind of thing. I think that's actually a bit of buyer's remorse, and we could have got what we wanted at a much cheaper price. And yeah, and they have, absolutely have, and they keep the 2 first-round picks. I think it puts the Raiders not in a massive jam, to be honest, the Raiders, but certainly I think their plans, we'll talk about what the Raiders did, certainly altered with this because how aggressive they were in free agency on the basis of the cap and that money, and you've got the first-round picks in the bank. So yeah, it stinks. I don't think it's a good look for the Ravens. I think it might have some impact on them in terms of other teams willing to kind of work with them a little bit. So that's kind of where I thought it was.
Joe, what do you think? Ravens, are they legit or are they just big old bullshitters? Those are the only 2 options.
Neither.
Sorry, did you say something to me? My connection, the headphones went out. So
This is
what you said for the last 3 seconds.
So Joey's Eric DeCosta when the Raiders called up saying like everything's good with the physical, right? He's like, did you call me? No, I don't know who that is. No, we're not taking Max Grizzly on. Who the hell have you been speaking to? Yes, Joe, I asked, do you think the Ravens are legit or just big old bullshitters?
I'm probably leaning more to Paul's side. It feels like they got quite a lot of information they knew about his injuries and doing the physical just after his surgery, where and I know the medical doctor, I think he's the Cowboys doctor who did the surgery, was saying it was unfortunate when they were doing the physical because he would look better, obviously, as the recovery takes place. But the Ravens knew that. So it's always one of them things like, surely, you know, like in football and whatnot, where you do the medical first before agreeing to something. Like, surely that could have happened. You could have flown him in, maybe, or flown the medical team out, had a look before doing all this. Because I know you said Max Crosby's fine with this, but he was going from a team who's lost throughout his career, who he's upon his shoulders, to a team who usually are in the playoffs and certainly challenging for a title. So I think I don't agree with that. I'm curious where his market goes to, if he stays with the Raiders. Or if another team goes in, but they're probably not going to get 2 first-round picks because of what the Ravens did as well. So that's another thing as well in terms of it's lowered the Raiders. I think the only good thing is that the Raiders had so much cap that it shouldn't affect all the other players they've signed. It would have been a nightmare if that 30-odd million they were going to save, they gave to someone else. They have to back out of that, and then you're affecting a lot of the places. So yeah, I'm probably leaning more with Paul's side, but I can see from both sides. It just stinks for everyone, I think.
My one little lean, and you mentioned it there, Joe, is the Cowboys doctor was involved and the Cowboys are now not interested as well. So like that kind of gives me a little more credibility to the Ravens maybe not fully bullshitting.
Then wouldn't he not known before? Like, because he did the surgery, so wouldn't he not have known to tell the Cowboys in the first place if they offered a first and a second?
Potentially, yeah. But again, the rumors were the Cowboys were in, and after the physical, they're not. So, I mean, we are talking rumors, like the doctor's not going to come out and say exactly what happened. The Cowboys were never going to say, yes, we are in beforehand either. So, we are talking rumors and a bit of innuendo. But, yeah. And, yes, spawning on from that, Trey Hendrickson is now a Baltimore Raven, obviously. I think maybe a better pass rusher than Max Crosby, but definitely not a better defender. Still work to do for Baltimore in that Jesse Mint, a new system. Other trades we've had, we had Rashawn Gary going from the Packers to the Cowboys for a 4th. We had Michael Pittman going from the Colts to the Steelers for a 6th, 7th round pick swap. Gino has finally wrote back. He is now a Jet again. Oh, my goodness. 6th, 7th pick swap as well. Minka Fitzpatrick to the Jets for a 7th round pick. How the mighty have fallen, goodness me. And one that impacts both our teams, Ozzie Odigizua. I think me and Paul are both a fan of through the years of the Cowboys. Off to the 49ers for a 3rd round pick after getting a big bag last year. So, Paul, how are you feeling losing him?
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with it losing Osa Odigizua. I think the change in the scheme with Christian Parker, and they kind of then have kind of now with what else they did have kind of got a bit of a excess of kind of the deal. I'm just not sure he would have played. I just don't think he fitted as well, and I think kind of I was disappointed in him last year. The numbers maybe give a little bit of a maybe do Osa Odigizua a bit dirty, how he actually played last year.
Yeah.
So I think he had 3.5 sacks after having an improved year the year before, but high amount of pressures from that D tackle spot. And I think so you're losing that a little bit. I just don't think it would have been as productive in this system under Christian Parker. You got off the contract. I think it freed up obviously some more space for the Cowboys to be a bit more flexible. Got a third-round pick back. We talked about the Cowboys having a shortage of the day 2 picks because of previous trades that they've made. So I think, I'm okay with it. And, they also got rid of a couple of other D linemen as well. Solomon Thomas went and somebody else went as well. So, I'm fine with it.
And Joe, position of need for the 49ers, I think certainly they've got Alfred Collins, a rookie last year. But other than that, a bit of a bare D tackle room, so useful.
Yeah, both D tackles were rookies, and I think Collins were played the better of the two, so probably line up next to us. And it's a position of need. They've not drafted well at DT as well. When you look throughout even the draft, even a lot of first round picks, they've invested in the defensive tackles like Kinlaw. Obviously, Thomas was one of them, where they haven't hit all the time. So to get someone who is, established and is ready to play, I think because they were in for what is his name? Why can't I find him on the list? Franklin Myers. That's who they wanted to get. Sound like in the news, but Robert Saleh got in there first to get him.
Yeah.
So it makes sense going for DT as well. I think they still need to load up on the edge. I'm curious why they're doing the draft, but they've got to start hitting on the on these line players. And I think I think overall it makes sense. A third round pick does seem a lot, but we've the 49ers in the third round have been thinkers. When you look at what they've done the last few years, it's not always great for them. So I like it. And with Morris coming in as defensive tackle again, I think it fits the scheme. He likes his defensive tackles to be athletic and be able to get plenty of pressure. So I think again, you're getting players to fit schemes rather than just getting in anybody's to fill gaps.
And I think
sorry,
you go ahead.
Matt Eberflus is obviously coming across from the Cowboys as well. I think he's on the 49ers staff now, so obviously having that history helps as well.
Yeah, you have to upgrade after.
Maybe. We didn't get a pick for Matt Eberflus, right? No, we did not.
No.
And also, the 49ers don't need their third round pick because they already extended their kicker, so no more Jake Moody's to come. Eddie Pinheiro got re-upped just before free agency started. Paul, any takes on Rashan Gary?
Yeah, I was quite happy. I guess I'm pretty happy with that. I think they were I suppose it was a decision then from the Cowboys if they knew they weren't going to be on Max Crosby in terms of the trade, then to make that move and actually instead of going into some sort of bidding war and having to compete against other teams, for your Trey Hendricksons and frankly and other kind of players, D-line players and edge rush players, actually get someone who's already kind of salary controlled and contract controlled. With Rashan Gary, obviously you've sent a fourth, but none of his money's guaranteed. I think it's $39 million left on 2 years of his contract, and none of it's guaranteed. So that'll get reworked, no doubt, and to be put in a friendly situation. Gary, I always feel like he should produce a lot more than he does when you kind of see him. He's got 6-7 sacks a season kind of guy. But what he is now, obviously he's 9 years in, he's a much better player against the run, and that's really what the Cowboys could do with as well. There is a shortage of pass rush, but he can kind of give you that in rotation, but he's a better defender against the run than what we've got. Definitely a better defender against the run than Osa Odigizua. That was certainly one of his weak areas in the middle of the line. So I think when you look at that front now that the Cowboys have got from Gary as a rotational piece, Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, they're in a much better position. Much better position from a D-line perspective. I think just offers them a bit better balance and just better financial control, I think, than where they were at.
Absolutely, yeah. And Paul is playing around with my mic. Thank you very much. Somebody keeps muting and unmuting. All right. StreamYard is trying to F us and create diversion in the camp. So that's our trade talk. The only take I have on Michael Pittman is I think Brandon Beane should feel very silly paying DJ Moore a second-round pick and a ton of money when you could have just swapped a 6th and 7th and got Michael Pittman. I don't think we need to dig in too deep on any of these. Gino, it's fun, but, the Jets ain't going to be good regardless unless you have a hot take that disagrees with it.
No, I was just going to say the Michael Pittman one, that's just perfect for Aaron Rodgers to come back. He's not a speedster. He's all about that 10-yard, that, the dogs and yeah, exactly, and just being physical. Him, Metcalf, it's perfect for the Aaron Rodgers now. It's just 10 yards down the
I like it as a move from the Steelers. I think the balance is good with DK and Pittman. I think you just try and have DK take the top of it, so to speak, a little bit more, and Pittman can thrive in that kind of short and more intermediate pattern over the middle. So I think it's a good combo for the Steelers. It's just not something they've had. They've not had the two receivers in such a long time. So yeah, I'm interested to see kind of under Mike McCarthy. They could be a lot more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I was going to say it's crazy when you think about the Steelers a few years ago. We were like, they just draft wide receivers all the time in the lower rounds and just hit nonstop. But the last few years, it's not quite gone to plan. So yeah, I really like it too for the Steelers.
Yeah, and 6-7 round pick swap, I think is, again, I think it makes the DJ Moore trade look so silly. You just wait a few days, you could go Pittman for nothing, basically, in comparison. So that's all the big trade. Well, all the trades, really, I think, unless there were some small ones we completely ignored, in which case...
There was a punter trade.
Yep, we're moving on. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through the big money moves, and then we're going to talk fantasy skill guys, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end separately, just so we're not getting all mixed in together. So of the big money moves, 5 of the top 6, 7 of the top 8, edge players, kind of unsurprisingly. The most per year we've got is Jalen Phillips going to the Panthers, got Trey Hendrickson to the Ravens, we've touched on, Odefe Owe to the Commanders, Boye Mafe to the Bengals, John Franklin Myers to the Titans, and Khalil Mack re-signing with the Chargers. Who stands out most to you? Obviously, they're all getting paid a lot. Franklin Myers, Owe, Hendrickson, Phillips, you're talking 20 million plus a year. Phillips topping up at 30 million there. Anyone stand out?
Yeah, probably the combination of what the Panthers have done, I think, defensively. Jalen Phillips and Devin Lloyd. I think 2 really, really good signings. So obviously at times, defense actually, the spike of the Panthers defense at times last year from good games to poor games was kind of unbelievable. They just lived on the extremes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think kind of bringing those 2 guys in, good age like Phillips, 27, Devin Lloyd, 28. Phillips had such a strong, specifically second half of the season after he went to the Eagles. I think they could just do with that big-time pass rusher, the Panthers. I think Devin Lloyd certainly is probably the best off-ball linebacker that there was available in free agency. So I think they're 2 pretty good deals money-wise as well. I just think that sets them up to just sort of being, if you are confident and we sort of think that Bryce Young has taken steps and that offense can be, just middle of the road or just be it doesn't have to be explosive. It doesn't have to put up 30 points a game. And you've got that defense. They could be a really, really solid team. It was a 9-8 that just talked about last year that just went from extremes and top to bottom on that wave all year long. And I think they can just be so much more consistent now, just having that strength in depth in the defense and having a couple of big time playmakers, which they didn't really seem to have before.
Yeah, and I think you talk about a big time pass rush. I think obviously it took Nick Scotton early in the draft last year. I think adding Phillips as a real dominant guy can help unleash that. Got JC Horn in there, got Trevor Moehrig in there, Derek Brown, really strong DN tackle. Bobby Brown, big guy with the middle as well. I think, pieces are getting in place there for Carolina on the defense for what was a proper liability 2 years ago and improved a little last year, and I think will improve again. My favorite of the bunch is Owe going to the Commanders. Again, I think such a big need for them. Von Miller kind of, I don't want to say totally falling off, but getting close to it last year, let's be completely honest. I think he's someone who can come in and hit the ground running in that defense. Joe, did I steal yours there? You didn't look too happy.
No, I was probably the opposite. I think that's a lot of money to give to Owe. Coming from a Chargers team where it feels like it was the scheme and he had a lot of good players around him to go. I think what the Washington's done the last day or two probably lessens that. But when that was their first sign, I was like, "Oh, is he going to be one of them who gets all that?" A very Commanders kind of free agency, what they would have done under Dan Schneider, where they would have blown a big money on like a big edge rusher who's like the third best of their team to try and be the man. And he does it because he is getting 100 million, 25 a year, 68 is total guarantees. So that is a lot of money for someone who really proved it at the end of last year. And with the Chargers, and we talked about how good Jesse Minter was as a defensive coordinator, and the pieces that having Mac and a few others to help him out, to then go to this Commanders team where it's a brand new defensive scheme, where it's more it's a Flores kind of scheme. Can he reproduce that for that kind of money? I think, like I said, the signings they've done the last day is certainly helped out. But yeah, I don't mind it, but it's a lot of money. When you look at the person below that, which is the one I like, is Boye Mafe, what the Bengals did. I think that's smart. Him coming off from the Seahawks, he's got 3 years, 60 million. I think it's 19 million total guaranteed and 19 a signing. And just the Bengals actually signing players on the first day and doing some money was massive. It felt like, because they also got Brian Cook as well, safety for 40 million total, 3 years coming from the Chiefs, and they desperately need defensive pieces. So I actually like what the Bengals have done, but actually them spending some money for once. And they got Jonathan Allen as well, which is seem to be, it's actually, it's investing. Something. After letting Hendrickson go, you need to replace them kind of players for them to compete with what their offense is doing.
Yeah, and I do really like the Mafe signing as well. I think he can do a bit of everything, especially like he will get to the passer, but I think he can do a bit of everything in and around the line of scrimmage. So I think that's a really good one. We didn't mention the other big name in that financial list because everyone was edge, but Tyler Linderbaum is a Raider. Huge money, obviously, resetting the center market, 27 million a year, 60 million guaranteed. They also added Quay Pay, Quay Walker, and Nakobe Dean to boost that defense, which again, very much needed it. And they've got Max Crosby back, still there, whatever you want to call that. So I think Raiders kind of the marquee name probably of the first few days of free agency. Any of those stand out? I mean, Tyler Linderbaum was always going to get a bag. 27 million is a ton of money, but top of the position players don't get to free agency very often. So he was always going to get 20 plus. I figured he'd get 22, 23, 27 again. It's probably more than I would have paid, but what difference does it make?
Yeah, I think it's going to buy like 50%. Like the guy below was like 18 a year, I think. And so now he's gone to 27. That resets the market completely. I feel like you said, I think he got an All-Pro last year, so obviously that probably helped. And I wonder how many teams, there's so many teams who need a center, which is massive. Obviously, we talked about it. Well, you talked about it, Byron, with Alec, about what his strengths are, especially the run game and helping us. So that's obviously going to help Mendoza and Gente, and I think that's huge. I think that's a candidate. When you think of Kubiak, it's going to be very run heavy, run first, so having that center. And they've got the money, so it's a bit like, why not? I don't mind teams. I think the Raiders, I saw something where they had to spend 120 million to actually not be at the lowest end of the cap or something like that. Like they had to spend this money, so why not get the best center on the market, improve that way? And I do like a lot of the signings. It feels like they've raised the floor a lot on the on that defense, getting especially Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean at that price they managed to get for at linebacker. I think that's great. That was one of their biggest weaknesses. Quiddy Pay, I'm not quite sure. Just he hasn't hit the heights where his pre-draft stock was. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, getting Max Crosby back, if he does stay, then you're like, oh, okay, this defense is actually looking pretty decent with Eric Stokes as well. And Michael Coons, which we mentioned, coming back. So I think they've lifted the floor there. Obviously, they need to draft well. We thought they were going to get a couple of more draft picks, to say, but I think it's a kind of moves where teams go from the worst to like the middle, like chase the playoffs, and then they can go a bit further where they need to hit these draft picks. But these players in 2 or 3 years' time will help them achieve them to get to where they need to.
I'm interested in what he does now, because I think obviously their strategy's probably changed quite quickly because of what's happened. And I think, you're right, the cap position, they could still kind of spend this money anyway. And Crosby money of it is only a small chunk of it. But I think it certainly does. You're banking on having those first round picks, having some flexibility maybe to move up the board. 1 and 14, we know where they're going with 1. 14, could that have been the wide receiver? They feel like they don't really have much weapons. They've got Jalen Naylor, could be a good two guy, maybe a 2-3. He's spending a lot of money if he's a 3 on him, but you have the opportunity there maybe to go Mendoza and get his target, and you could have the picks to go up a little bit, and maybe if you wanted to, similar to what the Bears did maybe a couple of years ago, went and got Caleb and Caleb and Adunze, and you could have sort of like double dipped and then done that. So you don't have that ability to do that now, I guess. So I wonder if we'll see them maybe over this kind of second wave of free agency look at a little bit more in the bargain bin for some more wide receivers and flesh that out a little bit more, and maybe that has to be a little bit slower than it would have been. It'd have been all full steam ahead with the picks from the Crosby trade.
Yeah, I'm guessing we'll have to see what happens, because I think they're still going to get, if they do trade him, they'll get 1 first-round pick. It's probably not. They're not probably going to get 2. It's probably going to be the first and the third probably now, or first and the second at max. But probably don't even get that. So I think they still could do it, but do they get that pick for 2026, or is it going to be something what goes after the draft is for 2027, where when they are still a rebuilding team, you would like both of them now? I think what they got from the Ravens was top of the market in terms of like how much they got draft stock. So I'm curious where this goes in the next run up to the draft, and do they get one for this draft or the next draft, or does it just stay on the Raiders? Who knows? Yeah,
I'd be still there at this point. If anything did move with it before the draft, maybe like draft night, maybe it could be that one of those trades, that big trades that happens during the first round.
Well, you better have a doctor on hand.
No, you can see
because if you've got 15 minutes to make your pick, you trade that to the Raiders, and then you see a medical, and that knee looks like shredded cabbage, you're probably going to regret it. So, yeah, I don't think a draft day trade happens just on that basis, unless again someone checks his injury out. Any other of the big money guys you guys want to hit on? I don't think I have anybody in particular. Otherwise, we'll just move on to the fantasy skill guys. Not going to talk about the fantasy position of it, but just those positions.
I'll just shout out, I think the Titans have done well in the first couple of days, just getting Franklin Myers and a few others. Just it's like their kind of guys, like from Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll kind of stuff. So I enjoy what they've done there. So I suppose that Franklin Myers one.
We've got a whole winners and losers segment that we've prepped for later on, and Joe just jumps in and steals my thunder.
I have a little additional note on the Titans, but I will leave it for later. I don't want to get shot down. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to go position by position. We've got quarterbacks up first. So Danny Dimes gets a transition tag, then re-signs on what essentially the 2-year deal, about $45 million a year. I think it works out at $50 million guaranteed. So I mean, could be a 1 year, but probably not. Malik Willis is a Miami Dolphin, only $45 million guaranteed, 3-year deal. So I think that's very cuttable as well. And kind of breaking as we start recording here, Kyler Murray, a 1-year deal to the Minnesota Vikings. What's our favorite move here?
Yeah, I really like Kyler to the Vikings. I think I'll check just before we recorded actually on the market. We get the week 1 starter markets.
Oh yeah.
I want to try and get out on that, because I'm probably the best price you're going to get on it is probably now. So yeah, as soon as that goes up, I'm sure it'll be odds on by the time it gets put up by the bookies. But I like Kyler to win that job. I think he's only going there if it is open competition. I'm sure he's been sort of told by the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell it is, and I think Kevin O'Connell can do a great job with Kyler Murray. So very excited to see that. I think he's got a strong second act coming, Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he has a no tag clause inserted into the contract, which I think is very smart by him. If you play well, you get free agency and hit it properly, go and get yourself a real big bag again. This was my pick for where he would end up all along. I thought it just made the most sense. And never mind, I don't care whether they call it an open competition or not. Kyler Murray is a better quarterback than JJ McCarthy. Unless JJ McCarthy's had some incredible growth between December and May when they see each other again, it's Kyler Murray's job to lose. So I think that works out really well. The Vikings cash strapped. They've made a lot of restructures, lost some players on, especially on defense, that they probably didn't want to. They've had to restructure Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson. But I think Kyler Murray, top 15 quarterback? I don't think he's crazy at his best. So where you look, they won 9 games last year with Max Brosmer, Carson Wentz, and I just forgot his name, JJ McCarthy. I don't know if they started a 4. I think it was just a 3. It's not crazy that can win 11 or 12 games with Kyler Murray fronting up there. Again, considering how bad that quarterback room was last year. Joe, any takes on these guys or?
Yeah, obviously we had a chat about Malik Willis beforehand, and I know you ruled out the Dolphins, but it ended up coming true. Actually, he went for a lot less money than I expected. I was thinking that with the market, he could have got a little bit more. I'm curious if obviously going down to Florida, that certainly helps with the tax bracket and how much people are in on him. You see such wide reaction for this, where you see people saying like he's going to be the next Sam Darnold, where what they've seen in them a short amount of games, just what he's improved in Green Bay, especially his footwork, he can step up and be the next good to great quarterback. But you've also seen where people like he's literally played 3 games since he's got here, so come and rely on that kind of stuff. So I think it makes the Dolphins interesting, and I think that's what you really want. Obviously, my prediction about them going gun ho and getting rid of all the players, I don't think that'll happen now, because now they got Willis in and what they're paying, and I think they'll keep their main weapons. But at least it makes them fun, and also the contract's not crazy that if it goes absolutely disastrous this year, they could easily get out of it next year or the year after. I think it's not one of them where they've just like what they did with the 201, where they're taking a 90 million dead cap hit this year, something crazy like that. Where if you just they're playing Willis all year, and it's more like the Titans Willis rather than the Packers Willis, you can get out of it. So I actually think it's a smart move by the Dolphins doing that, and also with flipping to Daniel Jones. I think it's smart on both sides. Just again looking at the money, looking how it's structured. It's like if he again is a terrible year next year, then you're not going to take a huge hit, and if he does play well, then he'll sign another big contract after that. So I think it just sets both the player and the team where let's just see, it's really like a 1-year contract, and then we'll see what we do next year. Do we extend you or get rid of you, depending on how he plays this year?
Absolutely, and I think I don't love paying Daniel Jones that money after one really really good year. Let's be fair. I think over the career, you take Kyler Murray. But if Kyler Murray wanted to go to Minnesota, you've got to do the business. Like, you're in a time-sensitive window. You've got to do something. And they know Daniel Jones. And when has it ever gone wrong paying Daniel Jones on a big contract? Well, just that one. The only time it happened, I guess. But we will see. If he's back fit, I'm sure the Colts offense will be rolling. We'll hit on running backs next up. So Kenny Walker went to the Chiefs. $14.5 million a year, roughly. Travis Etienne to the Saints. Javonte Williams re-signed with the Cowboys before free agency. J.K. Dobbins back to the Broncos. Kenneth Gainwell is now a Buck, and replacing him in Pittsburgh is Rico Dowdle. And then Tyler Algier, who I think a lot of people thought would get a starting job, is with the Cardinals in kind of a three-headed power backfield. James Conner and Trey Benson there. What stands out to you here? Kenneth Walker, obviously the headline name. Joe, who are you most interested by?
I really like the Travis Etienne going back to Louisiana, where he's from. I think it helps the hometown discount. There's been reports where this might mean that Kamara's retiring. There's then whispers around because there can be similar players, and Etienne is a bell cow, and they'll give him the ball, and maybe that'll suit Kellen Moore's kind of offense. So I do like that one. Obviously, I predicted the Kenneth Walker one. There's some of these are like, I'm not quite sure just why they've done it. There's no like spectacular, I don't think, out of these running back ones. But I do like the Kenneth Gainwell to the Bucks, and then the Steelers getting Rico Dowdle. It feels like everyone's just swapping like their second running back and just having that kind of player in there. Interesting one you haven't mentioned, Keaton Mitchell's gone to the Chargers. I think that could be fun, and we'll see what it does there. Rashad White going to the Commanders, and Pacheco going to the Lions, obviously replacing Montgomery. So I think that could be, obviously hasn't played well the last few years, but not being the lead man might help him out, especially if they've improved that line, because they signed their center the other day as well at the Lions.
Yeah, similar balance to kind of that Montgomery, you always talk about the partnership, don't we, with Montgomery, Gibbs, and we have done over the last 3 seasons. I think that's just kind of, that just continues, because Pacheco offers, at his best, Pacheco can offer the same things. I just wonder, and I just hope, he's such a fun player to watch, Pacheco. I just had the horrific leg break that he just doesn't seem to have got going from. Kind of hope that he can get going in Detroit, because the Detroit fans and Lions fans will love him because of his physical nature and the way that he runs. Like they'll get behind him for sure. I think that'd be a fun, like, bit of a comeback story, just because he struggled so much off the back of that injury.
And Dan Campbell having running through walls, legs or no legs. So that's a thing. And nobody mentioned Kenneth Walker. Or Joe, you got the prediction right. But as a fit, I think he's absolutely great, and such an upgrade on Kareem Hunt. And so just mentioned the one leg of Isaiah Pacheco. The corpse of CEH had some run last year as well. I don't know if I'm missing anybody. Did they bring Damian Williams back at some point as well, maybe? But yeah, Walker, I'm really surprised Seattle let him go when that is the market price. But that was kind of my prediction. If Seattle let him go, they won't see him again, because he'll go somewhere that's going to pay him just a little more. And the Chiefs, it is. I think it's a great signing for Kansas City. They need an extra element on their offense. Maybe they still go wide receiver in the draft, maybe. But I think Walker's a huge addition off the bat there. And I also, you mentioned it, Kenneth Gainwell to the Bucks. I think huge upgrade on what Rashad White can give you, who has now gone to the Commanders. We'll see what Washington do. Maybe they're in the Jeremiah Love market. I would wager them the Titans are the favorite for it. Tight ends, Isaiah Likely went to the Giants. Travis Kelce returned to the Chiefs. Hawkinson took a pay cut and stayed with the Vikings. Cade Otton stayed with the Bucks as well. I think a lot of people were curious where he would end up. Chig Okonkwo to Commanders. And this one's really for what he does for the offense rather than himself. Charlie Kohler to the Chargers. He got mentioned on 2 of our You're the Fix Your Franchise series. Alec didn't want him to leave Baltimore. Foz wanted him in New England. Again, not so much what he does himself, but a very willing blocker. And again, I think with the Keaton Mitchell addition you touched on there, Joe, I think Amari and Hampton, them two will be delighted to see Charlie Kohler in there. I'm not sure Rondy Gadsden will be as delighted because he might take his snaps down, but I think Isaiah Likely is probably the headline maker here. Sorry, Joe, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say they'll probably play 2 tight ends, I can imagine, the Chargers. And
yeah,
it is a lot of money, $17 million guarantee for the 3rd tight end of the Ravens. So you would hope that his projection of pass catching as well is the seen a projection as well. But yeah, that was probably my favorite tight end move out all of them. I know it's a lot of money, but we saw with their line, it got absolutely decimated to having an extra body to help out. The tackles and interior. Hopefully they all come back fit. That is certainly a big pickup for the Chargers.
Yeah, that's the likely move. I think we were expecting that Harbaugh was going to pick up a couple of his guys, and I think likely is a good balance with Theo Johnson that we saw from the Saints as well the Giants last year. And he seems to have really, really good chemistry and connection with Jackson Dart. Before he went down, for in the games that he played. So obviously missed a few games, didn't with injury, but yeah, that seemed to work out quite well. So I think you might see the Giants be 2 tight end heavy, and likely offers a bit more of kind of like the vertical threat than what Johnson does. So I think that could be a good partnership. And again, the Giants probably need pass catch. Obviously, they have neighbors back, of course, from injury, but they've had one very reliable target over the last couple of years and leave free agency. So yeah, very important, I think, for the Giants to kind of get that other kind of just downfield target.
Absolutely. And I kind of love the Chig Okonkwo move for Washington, but we will get to either him or them later in our winners and losers. And that takes us to wide receivers. And we all thought it was going to be an interesting market for Alec Pierce. And then I think like 2 minutes before free agency legal tampering opened, he re-signs with the Colts. And good for him, gets paid a bag, but not very exciting, I would say, for the wanting a huge reaction to it. So the big moves, we've got Alec Pierce staying with the Colts. Wan'Dale Robinson to the Titans. Rashid Shaheed stays with the Seahawks. Mike Evans becomes a 49er. Romeo Dobbs to the Patriots. Jalen Naylor, I hardly know her, to the Raiders. And Jahan Dodson. Now, and this is when it's getting rough when I'm saying Jalen Naylor and Jahan Dodson at this stage, to the Falcons. We can probably ignore Naylor and Dodson, I would dare say, for relevance. Who's that about you here?
We've got to talk about Mike Evans, haven't we? Joe, how happy are you having Mike Evans as a San Francisco 49er?
Yeah, very happy. Obviously, with how the 49ers play and how Brock plays, when he certainly throws up a few balls just to say, like, go on, catch it, help me out. Who better than Mike Evans? I think it feels like very much when the Rams got Devontae Adams, you need someone who just wins in the red zone, and they've not had that. I feel like they're replacing Juwan Jennings with Mike Evans. It feels like they're not going to re-sign Jennings. So having Mike Evans, I think he plays better. Obviously, with Kittle being injured in the playoffs, it's going to be a while until he's fully healthy. So you haven't got that big target anymore. And actually, like when I saw it was 3 years, and I was like, oh, okay, have we overspent? But when you look at the contract, it's not that bad at all. $42 million for 3 years, only $16 million guaranteed. So it feels like he's taking a bit of a pay cut to come to California as well, which we talked. I know I mentioned that in the group chat that he's gone from Florida to California and take a pay cut. So he must be chasing some history. So fingers crossed the substation doesn't affect him like everyone else. And he has a huge year. And if he can stay healthy, and the rest of the wide receiver room, especially Pearsall, I think that'd be a great room. It's just staying here. I think Pearsall can be a number 1A, 1B kind, like the flashes he's shown. You've got Mike Evans as well. obviously it's changed completely from a few years ago when you had, Debo, Ayuk, and Jennings. They've all basically gone now. It looks like they're going to release Ayuk at any point soon. That they need to re-establish. So getting Mike Evans and hopefully drafting a youngster as well to be the third wide receiver to help them out, because they also lost Kendrick Bourne, who went to the Cardinals, another wide receiver who's not been mentioned. So yeah, I'm really happy that we managed to get him. And even if we get a year or two out of him, hopefully as a Devontae Adams way is catching 10 to 15 touchdowns during this year would be money well spent.
Yeah, he's going to be an early favorite of mine in the most touchdowns receiving market, depending on what his price is. Of course, I'm not taking anything under 20 to 1 on anybody. You know me, love a long shot. I absolutely love that move. That was one I called last week. I think it's such a perfect fit for him and the Niners, as you say, Joe. Paul, what do you think of Alec Pierce re-signing?
Yeah, I think that is a heck of a lot of money. And we kind of knew that he was probably going to get that. Yeah, I find it tough. Obviously, he's almost kind of year on year got better and better, and he's such a downfield threat. And it's now obviously you want to have that, but he's your one, right? That's kind of where you're at now. I'm not sure he is a one. You're paying him as a one.
Yeah, I
don't think he has the skill set. It's great that he can catch long balls, but we look at some of his numbers at times in games, and it's 1 for 60.
Yeah.
From 2 or 3 shots. It's I think that this could just be probably got so much money tied up in him, and then you've gone with that with Edge. The better wide receiver is Pittman, in my opinion. The better player and the better wide receiver is Pittman, and maybe that's the one you should have prioritized keeping. I like Alex Pierce as a take the top off a defense and do that. He's a role guy. In essence, he's a bits guy. I just don't see this 100 or this money tied up in Alec Pierce. I just don't see it unless he's just all of a sudden just going to evolve his game and develop this. But we've not seen it so far. So why all of a sudden? What suggests it's all of a sudden going to happen?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard there's been reports that the Colts are seeing he can do more about trees now, where he's worrying the defenders, obviously going deep, and he's able to cut back. And I think when you compare him and Pittman, it feels like Pittman has a higher floor, but he hasn't got really anything special about him, where Pierce probably has a higher ceiling, where he has got that special talent, that special ability, which is his speed and everything else. But he's got a lower floor. So I think they're gambling on, can Pierce make that big step, because he has to be the number one. Now he got targeted 84 times last year and only caught 47 of them. Got 1,000 yards, and the last 2 years it's over 21 average yards per catch. But he needs to catch more if you're paying him that much money. So I think it's a big gamble. It's been a bit of a weird one for the Colts, I think, in everything what they've done. And it sounds like they missed out on a few players as well. It sounds like they were interested in Hendrickson and a few of us. So, and obviously what they've done elsewhere. So yeah, I didn't find it when I first saw it, but I can understand it. But it's a gamble on their
And just on the Pittman Pierce of it all, I mean, to be fair, Pittman is 28, gone on 29 as well. So whatever ceiling he did have, I think you'd be surprised if he gets there again. Pierce, I think it's a huge gamble. But again, good players don't hit free agency if you've got the money to spend. But I mean, he maybe shouldn't have hit free agency. Maybe they should have re-upped him last year at $12 million a year, and he'd probably have taken it. And only 47 receptions. He's only had double-digit targets twice in his 64-game career, which kind of stands out to me as we are taking a risk that he can do more. But I do kind of trust Shane Steichen to get the best out of his offense, whoever it may be. So, and I have done him as one of my winners. I'm kind of intrigued by Josh Downs going into next year now. I've always really liked him, gets open an awful lot, but he just doesn't play in 2 wide receiver sets. Well, surely he does now. Again, pending the rest of free agency in the draft, but there's not really that much left. We'll get to the best availables after this. I really hope Josh Downs can have a breakout year next year. Yeah. We will see.
I think it helps him having how big of a weapon Tyler Warren was, where they were like, okay, we probably don't need to pay that much money for these 2 guys. We'd have to choose one of them and have Josh Downs, like you said, in there. So I think that helps him.
For sure. So otherwise, Shaheed back in Seattle, I think just makes a ton of sense. I think it speaks to where the wide receiver versus running back market is. That Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, gets told to essentially take a hike, and Rashid Shaheed re-ups on a little more money. And I think it's hard to say had more impact than Walker. But I think it's just the market of these players. Sorry, breaking news as well. Sorry. Seattle did sign Emmanuel Wilson today. He didn't make the list because he's on such low money. But I think that's just kind of where smarter GMs are going, where we'll pay money for wide receivers and replenish running back on the cheap or through rookie drafts. So, yeah, sorry, Joe, you were going to say.
I was going to say, like, they have paid him like a decent amount of money for what he gave. Like, so he gave big players for Seattle, but I think he needs to step up as well, because his role really wasn't the full-on with you having JSN and Cup as well. So I think he needs to take that step, because if you're paying that much money for, you know, a punt returner, essentially, and a third wide receiver, it is quite a lot. So I think he needs to step up his game and progress to be like established as the number 2 wide receiver and certainly get more snaps, which he should do with having a full off season with them. And
sneaky, not young Rashid Shaheed, already 28. So certainly in earning territory. And my only final take is Wan'Dale Robinson to the Titans. Obviously, real links with Brian Dable. And all I have to say is, for that money, I would want 2 Dale Robinsons.
Leave that till when we got some winners and losers a bit. Let's leave the Wan'Dale Robinson.
Well, I'm just throwing my little gag out there, mate. Keep your hair on. So what we've got before we get to winners and losers is best remaining. I'm just going to run through them. If you've got a take at the end of it, chuck it out. If you've got a fit that you think is going to happen. We've got Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins at quarterback. We've got Juwan Jennings, Steph Diggs, Deebo Samuel wide receivers. We've got Njoku and Dallas Goedert at tight end. Dallas Goedert hasn't technically been released yet. They're working out the void language. I think he's going to be cut tomorrow. Maybe he ends up staying in Philadelphia. And then we've got Juwan Taylor at tackle. Defensively, we've got Cam Jordan, Joey Bosa, Hassan Reddick. Jaquan Brisker has just signed with the Steelers. Let's take him off that list. Don't think we need to react to that signing, though.
Breaking news, was it? Yeah.
That is breaking news. Yeah, just turned agreed terms. Jaquan Brisker with the Steelers. 1 year, $5.5 million. Any of those names stand out. I think we all think Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler.
Yeah,
he doesn't
come back in here.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Kirk Cousins rumored to the Raiders as kind of that Mendoza step-in piece, which I thought Cousins would want to do more for himself after requesting a release from the Falcons, but
he's not. All the opportunities have gone, haven't they? Like, that's the, when you look at kind of what's there now, like all the ones that had kind of opportunities have gone. Gino at the Jets, I guess. Murray at the Vikings, who could have gone back home to Minnesota, and mentored McCarthy maybe, and played for a year. Yeah, and the Dolphins, like, they're all the obvious. Those are the obvious ones, weren't they? And I don't know, maybe like Sam, and we'll talk about this a lot in the draft. I'm not convinced Mendoza starts week 1. I'm really not. I don't think he's ready, and he could get 6 or 8 games out of Cousins before you handed it over to him, maybe, if you were the Raiders.
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah. And a name not on there because he's not unretired. Derek Carr, the NFL. He said, "Hey, I'm ready to come out of retirement." And the NFL said, "Oh, yeah, we heard you. See you." Maybe try again next year, Derek. See what vacancies come up. I thought he'd be a Jet, but he's nothing. And I think the biggest intriguing name here is, why is Juwan Jennings still a free agent? I remember one defensive players called him a hoe. Is that maybe an understood league thing, that Juwan Jennings is a hoe and therefore nobody wants him?
I wonder if because he wanted big money from the 49ers, so like every year they have to try and renegotiate. Yeah. So I wonder if it's more there. One player you haven't mentioned, Rashid Walker. I don't know, has he been signed elsewhere? But
the
defensive tackle.
Yeah, still up there. Yeah,
he was ranked 19th on Greg Rutherford's 101. So I think that's, again, I'm surprised no one snapped up one of the best tackles on the market. Again, I wonder if he's asking for quite a lot of money and no one's willing to give it just yet. So yeah, we'll see where it goes there. And I think Stefan Diggs could be an interesting piece. Wherever
doesn't he just feel like a Baltimore Raven?
It could be.
It just feels so Raven anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Probably not back to Buffalo, I would say. But otherwise, pretty much anywhere. I still think David Njoku becomes a Falcon. His release only got done today, so he was a little late because the Browns wanted to do 3 post-June 1st cuts, and you only allowed 2. Cleveland, you don't have that many things to prepare for. Surely that's one. I know that rule. I'm sure you guys know that rule. Come on. But should we start negative or start positive? End positive, start negative?
Yeah. Losers. Let's start with losers.
All right, losers. Joe, you have 2 losers, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my second one just because, just looking at I think it's the Arizona Cardinals and just their prospects of next year. I did like the the sign of Isaac Sameo, a guard. I thought the need to improve that offensive line. But when you look at the rest of who they've got, Tyler Agiu, which we've mentioned, Kendrick Bourne, they got Gardner Minshew in as their backup / rivaling, coming off an injury as well against so that means we're going to go with Jacob Brissett, and it feels like they're just this year, like we talked about the Jets and trying to get a great draft pick in 2027. It feels like the Cardinals are also doing this. But you do worry for a head coach. They're a team who's got rid of head coaches after 1 year quite a few times. So going into this year with what they've got on that roster, that they haven't gone big in free agency, I just worry for. And they're in probably one of the hardest divisions in the NFC West. When you look at the other three teams, how they've improved to the Rams secondary, the Seahawks, Super Bowl champions, and what the 49ers have done, you're like, you are way behind the fourth, these three teams in your division, and it's not going to get any easier, and you haven't really improved that squad, which was one of the worst as well. So I just see the 2026 Cardinals is just my loser, that you haven't done anything to excite your fans. You've got a good guard in, but that's not going to excite anyone really. So it's the Arizona Cardinals as a whole, I think, is a loser, that they haven't made an effort. It feels like this feels like the ultimate tanking for 2027.
So I put a little sheet together on Sunday of every division winner odds and therefore their implied probability to win that division. And then I've updated it today on the new odds that have updated as of all the free agency happenings. The Cardinals are the longest odds to win their division. Their win probability is 1%, 1.32%. I don't speak out of turn. The next lowest is the Dolphins and the Raiders, tied at 4.76%. They are 75-1 to win the NFC West. The Dolphins and the Raiders are 20-1 to win their division. So they are way outlier of bad. So can't disagree with that one. Paul, your loser is?
Good faith is my loser of free agency. Mainly shot to pieces by the Baltimore Ravens. Good faith is my loser. I had a few others, to be fair, as well. I think the Ravens are not too impressed with what they've actually. I think obviously the plans may have changed, stuff like that. I feel like they had that on the back burner. So what else they went around and did in free agency, wasn't particularly impressed with. And they've got a lot more holes than you think. They've still got kind of a Lamar situation to resolve as well. There's a lot going on at Baltimore. It doesn't seem pretty. The GM's coming in for a lot of fire, not just for the behavior around the Crosby trade, but just generally, when we talk about the Ravens as just being sound organization, always put themselves in a position to be good. Wonder if they're just losing that a little bit, and if that's just part of a change of having a culture change and having people have the Harbaugh going and things like that. That things just come a little bit, things become slack for a little bit maybe. But I think it could mean that we have a potentially pretty poor Baltimore Ravens in 2026. But that's by the by. Otherwise, I wanted to mention, I think the Packers as well. And the Packers, again, similar, same principle around, usually real solid and roster building and always put, very, very capable team out there. With what they've lost and what they've so far replaced it with, that draft's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting, I think, for the Packers. They just seem to be in a bad transitional spot. Obviously, you've got the coach that lifts that up and things like that, but I don't know. I'm just not convinced with kind of, what they've lost versus what they've brought in. You look at the names they brought in, Zaire Franklin in that trade, Benjamin St-Juste, Hargrave's an interesting one, but yeah, I guess a lot of that's in the trade for Parsons that they've done. The coach carrying a lot of wins, and I don't like. I'm usually a big fan of what the Packers do. I don't like what they've done so far.
And a lot of people, maybe one person, said they maybe lost their best quarterback as well. I'm not saying it, but he was very efficient last year, Malik Willis. And I think I kind of think that's like having Willis.
Times, for fuck's sake, come on.
He was very effective. But we will see, yeah, of course. My loser is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So again, I mentioned I've done my win division, change of odds, etc., etc. The Bucs have lost the second most win probability since free agency open. They are still favourites for the division, but they are 29-20 as opposed to 23-20. So they've gone from 46% to 40%, losing 6% of win probability there. And I just kind of hate what they've done. They lost Mike Evans, franchise absolute stalwart. Lost Jamal Dean to the Steelers, lost Logan Hall. Levante David, rumored to be not coming back, might just retire. You got Todd Bowles on a hot seat there. And this is a kind of sneaky one that I'm hoping we'll be clipping in 10 months from now. I've already took a bet on the Buccaneers to have the worst record in football. 80-1. I got the Dolphins last year as my early call, and they kind of ended up getting into respectability. But it was a nice bet for a little while. Got offered some cash out that would have made me a good chunk of money, and I turned them down because I'm a man of principle. But I think the Bucs are heading for just a bit of a shit show of a season. Baker Mayfield was terrible down the stretch, and he was injured, but he also was terrible. We will see. Godwin wasn't himself when he came back. Again, he's another year fresher, but he's also another year older. And we'll see with Baker. You get the highs, you get the lows. We'll see. Just very thin. And I really like Kenneth Gainwell, but you'd like to see a little more. As much as I like what Gainwell did in free agency in Pittsburgh before coming. And I'll just carry on with my... Sorry, Joe.
I was going to say, I've got some... I don't know if it's breaking news or whatnot. Well, it's not crazy. Well, it's to do with the 49ers shock. So they've just signed Dre Greenlaw's coming back. But then Bryce Huff's retired. So they've got one defender in, one is gone. So Bryce Huff retired at 27 years old with a trade for last year. So sorry about
Indeed, yeah. No, it's fine. I hope he wasn't too upset. I don't want him huffing all the way into retirement. My winner is the team who actually, let me get my chart back up here, gained the most in win probability for their division. They went from 14% to 18%. We touched on them earlier. I've gone for the Washington Commanders. I love what they've done this free agency cycle. Let's have a look. They've signed Amik Robinson from the Lions. Tim Settle come back on the D-line. Leo Chanel, I think, is an underrated linebacker with the Chiefs, has improved every year. Ed's got Chison from the Patriots and Owe from the Chargers that we talked about already, and Chiga Okonkwo at tight end. They could still bring back Zach Ertz, of course, but I think Okonkwo is a really intriguing piece. Very fast. Won't do the same role as Zach Ertz, so I wouldn't mind seeing Ertz come back as well. But what I hated a couple of years ago was they went so old. You know, your Austin Eckler's, Bobby Wagner's, and a number of other players to reestablish kind of that competent floor. But I think this is a real big tick for we're going a little higher now. We've got kind of our base culture in place. Brandon Ayuk, I think, is the worst kept secret in NFL circles, that he's going to be a commander as soon as San Fran decide to release him. And I can't really blame San Fran for not rushing with it because he hasn't exactly been a good trooper the last couple of years. Doesn't benefit them in any way to release him any quicker. So, but I still think he will be a commander. And the potential's there. I don't think you can bank on him being anything. I have no idea where he'll go in fantasy, for example, but he's certainly an upside player because he's a very good player. We'll see what his body's like and what his attitude's like. But I just love everything they've done. And again, another player, I haven't seen the odds for comeback player of the year, but I think Jaden Daniels is probably going to be high on my list. He might be a very short price because of that, though, because he's Jaden effing Daniels and he's really, really good. So, yeah, I just like the Commanders. I think they can compete for that division. They are at 9-2. They were 6-1 prior to free agency, so they've dropped down a little bit. Like I said, they've gained the most in value win probability since free agency opened. Paul, who is your winner of free agency?
Yeah, I could just touch on just a couple of daft ones, but centers in general. Joe touched on it earlier. Tyler Linderbaum's contract reset in the market, so that's setting the big boys in the middle up for some great paydays moving forward. When they come around. So yeah, congrats to centers. Big winners. Chris Schuler, I think big winner. Obviously, the two corners in McDuffie and Watson. That's everywhere they were weak. Don't have to play Manuel Forbes anymore. That's a big win. And Rams, we know how good they can be and how close they were last year. That was such a good team. Feels like they have all the pieces. The missing pieces of the Infinity Stones. I think that's some sort of Avengers reference. But yeah, it kind of feels like they've got all of the pieces now before the draft. So yeah.
And they still have pick 13.
And they've still got pick 13 as well. So,
and that's just to mosey in before you get to your winner there. That's another one of my early bets here as well. Long shot, I know, but can't you just see Les Snead and Sean McVay being like, we're in range to get the best defensive player in the draft, Jeremiah Love. And unless he goes to Tennessee, which Tennessee shouldn't take a running back, Washington are picking at 9, I believe, 8 or 9. Couldn't the Rams just like jump up that little bit to 8 or 7 and go like, hey, we're going to get the best defensive player. Kyron Williams can be like the dog on the goal line for another year, and then his contract's cuttable. And I just kind of think they love the idea of a big move. So I took Jeremiah Love at 40-1 to be a Ram because the big bet was the Chiefs and they signed Kenneth Walker. So that surely takes them out of the running. So that's my kind of second bet there. And I love what you said about centers. Yeah, I think this is the biggest day for centrists since Keir Starmer was elected. Little political humor for us all there. But Paul, you actually have one winner. So who is it?
That gag, that was the winner. Best gag of the season. Two full episodes in. Tennessee Titans, I really like what the Titans have done. I've seen, like, actually looking at some of the other things, a lot of negativity around what the Titans have done. I think they've lifted that, especially on the defense. I think they've lifted the floor of that defense. Robert Saleh's gone in there. We saw what he did last year with the Niners. Group of kids that he was dealing with most of the season, kind of kept them afloat, where given the losses that they had, any other team, I think, or any other coordinator probably would have sank. Maybe him, maybe Spags can deal with that sort of thing. But I just really, really like what the Titans have done overall. And they got kind of some of the big names. Talked about sort of Franklin Myers, one of those Broncos D linemen who were just raining sacks last year. I like what they've done there. I was a bit worried about what they were doing to begin with. I didn't really understand the trade too much with the Jets because I just love Tavondre Sweat. I think the partnership with Simmons was really, really good. But they've gone, obviously, we need to build a strength more on the edge. So to have then kind of what they got in Jermaine Johnson, okay, but then kind of up the interior of the D-line as well.
Yeah.
And they've done fantastically well there as well. And I really, really like the Wan'Dale Robinson move as well. This is a man that's caught 185 passes in the last 2 seasons from Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson, and Jameis Winston.
Yeah, the perfect opportunity to give us a quiz there, Paul, but okay.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, yeah. Apologies. But, and he's been so consistent and so reliable. I think Cam Ward's going to love him. They had just a real shortage of weapons. They're in a position. What they do at 4s, they're at 4, aren't they, in the draft? What they do at 4 is very, very interesting as well. They've gone big on building the lines as well. Can they continue to do that there at 4? Maybe they take a top or lineman, depending what the Cardinals do, etc. But they put themselves in a position to be really flexible. Maybe they can come down, get some more resources. But I think, Robert, there's some momentum around the Titans. And I really, really like as well Alontae Taylor. So one of the Saints, maybe the losers I was going to talk about, the Saints defense. They've lost Alontae Taylor. Cam Jordan's going to go and Demario Davis has gone. And that sucks because they are legendary Saints players, 2 of the 3 that we talked about there that they've lost. But I like Alontae Taylor as a bit of a playmaker in the secondary. I think they're in a position to turn this around relatively quickly in Tennessee under Robert Saleh. So, yeah, really, really like what they've done. And they got Mitch. That's great.
MVP. Joe, your final winner. Or you can list a couple, of course, but your winner.
No, I should do my winner. So we've talked about it quite a lot. I think it's the Raiders. I think what the Raiders have done this week is, as I mentioned before, they've just lifted the floor on the offense and defense. I think getting in Lindenbaum, who was, a lot of his rankings, who was in the top 4. Them kind of centers don't normally come on the market, and having all that much money to spend, able to get that in for first-time head coach Clint Kubiak. I think, getting in Jalen Nailor, I think he should slot in nicely when you've got, Trey Tucker and Jack Beach, and they're all under 28. You've also got, Brock Bowers, and hopefully you get to see the real Ashton Genty. Yeah. So you can now see an offensive weapon. You would like it, probably the out-and-out wide receiver one, but you've got probably the best tight end, or top 3 tight end in the league in Brock Bowers, who can catch as many balls as he wants. So I think that's great. And if that defense hits, I think, even without Max Crosby, obviously, if he stays, great. You've got one of the best edge rushers, and you've just built on that. And getting them 2 linebackers, and Kobe Dean and Quay Walker, I think if they, when you look at some of these, a lot of these are from the Georgia championship teams. If they can bring that mentality, they're coming from teams who have won as well. So, this is a lot of these players who have been in the Vegas team for quite some time. They've just been perennial losers, and it's one of them where it's like they just accepted losing. But you bring players in from teams who are in the playoffs year in, year out. They're going to bring a different mentality, and they're going to be like, no, this is not good enough. And I think just overall what they've done, it feels like they've been smart. Even though they've spent the money, they've actually spent it well. I know that Linderbaum was a crazy when you look at everyone else, but when you can get the best, one of the best centers on free agency, why not? They haven't done that like crazy where we've sat here being like, what have they done? Like, why have they spent that much money? I think that's a good thing for the Raiders, and hopefully they can, we know who they're going to take at the number 1 pick, and then hopefully the rest of the draft they can start building this team. But I just like that they've lifted the floor in a division which it's going to be interesting how that division works. We will see when Mahomes comes back. Chargers have lost their defensive coordinator. Were they able to carry that on? And Denver are probably the favourites right now, I'm guessing, just with where they're at. But they're not a team where you think, the next 6 years they're going to dominate. So the Raiders have got a chance to at least compete and give something to the fans with who they brought in.
Yeah, Chiefs actually, surprisingly to me, still favourites for the division. But yeah, it is a really close one. Basically, you've got win probability-wise, you've got Chiefs at 38, Chargers 35, Broncos 30. But the Raiders are the third most improved team from the Sunday till the start of close of free agency, or the league going live, whatever word I should be using there. They've improved from 40 to 1 to 20 to 1. So I mean, probability-wise, they've increased 2%. Couldn't agree more. I think they're in a much better position. And weirdly, we didn't get to the team who was second most improved in my little chart here. Other than Paul mentioned, their defense being a loser. The Saints improved the second most, 3%. But maybe that is just a thing of the Bucs dropped so much that kind of the NFC South teams all had to bump up a little. I think the rest of the NFC South all had an improvement. Yeah, the Saints jumped up 3, Panthers 1.8, Falcons 1.7, and the Bucs dropped 5%. But are still division favourites, so really interesting division there. I totally agree on the Raiders. Any last thoughts before we head out? Particular favourites, winners, losers we didn't get to. I'll just throw one fantasy one out there. I loved him last year. I'm going to love him again. Romeo Dobbs Easttown. Tucker Kraft is the wide receiver 1 on the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, we'll track his injury as we go, but I'm all in on Tucker Kraft once again because I hate that room. And I fully agree, Paul, I think it was you who said Green Bay Packers are a loser. Kind of hate everything about the Packers this year. So
they'll probably still get 10 wins and get in the playoffs, though. That's kind of the thing, isn't it, with the Packers? And
the second favourites for the division, and I would certainly take. Let me just look at NFC North. Yeah, so they're ranked ahead of the Bears, which I find crazy, and ahead of the Vikings. I think they're a lot closer to the Vikings than they are the Bears, and I think the Bears and the Lions are ahead of them. So,
and I was going to say, I think the Lions have not had a great. Yeah, I don't think Lions have had a great free agency. Just who they've lost, and I know they might bring a good a center in, but yeah, I don't think it's gone to plan for them with some of the losses they've had as well. So I think it's
the Lions,
a interesting division.
Again, I did have another chart that I'd set up as well of just the Vegas over-under. So, like, if it was odds on, if it's 7.5 and it's odds on the 7, odds on the over, you're predicted for 8 wins. The Lions lost the most wins. They went from an 11-win projection to a 10-win projection. That over-under flipped. The Raiders gained a game. The Jets gained a game. They're now 6 predicted win teams. And the Vikings lost, but again, that was pre-Kyler Murray, so I presume that's going to go back up with a competent quarterback in place. But yeah, I was really surprised. Yeah, Lions fell off a game. Packers a load of teams just stayed where they were. Not that huge amount of movements. Commanders went up half a game. Dolphins went up half a game. Now they've got something approaching a quarterback. And the Saints up half a game. So that's it from us. Our free agency winners, losers, breakdown of all the big moves. We'll be back next week with something to be decided. Might be an early sneak peek.
I'll tell you now. We've got a great interview I recorded a couple of weeks ago. So we're ready to roll. Dipping into college football, we've got Great Britain's own Luke Francis, who is a member of the Florida State Seminoles, one of the biggest college football programs in the sport. So yeah, I talked with Luke about his journey, how he got to Florida State. He's time for the NFL Academy. He's an NFL Academy alum. And yeah, just a really, really great talk. We could have talked for hours. Such a lovely guy. and potential to be an incredible player, and we'll hopefully see him play for Florida State this season. But yeah, check that out. That'll be out this time next week, I guess. So sit down and listen to our chat with Luke from Tallahassee.
Well, hopefully he's going to be a Seminole. So on that note, that's my third great joke of the episode. So we're going to sign off. Please go check us out on socials, subscribe. If you watch us on YouTube, you watch us on Spotify, give us a 5-star, give us a rating.
I'll shout out the guy who slated us the other day.
If you have anything negative to say, put it in the YouTube comments. Paul gets a kick out of it. And yeah, we were right. Brandon Bean doesn't know what he's doing. We've just proved it with Michael Pittman being there for a 6th, 7th round pick swap. Yeah, Josh Allen didn't technically have nothing, but he had very little. Give him a hand if you ever want to see Josh Allen make a Super Bowl. Follow us on socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok. Maybe some new ones I don't know about yet. I'm not that young. But give us a follow. We'll see you next week for that interview. Thank you very much.